Congressman Chabot, turning to the Middle East once again and the impact of the so-called Arab Spring. The Arab Spring was liberating in many ways, and of course we note that many of the countries, whether Tunisia, Egypt, and even Morocco, are now witnessing governments with more moderate Islamists in power. How do you see the U.S. relationship with these governments? Previously, there were some questions, whether or not these kinds of governments would be helpful or perhaps harmful to the United States. But the reality is they are in power now. And how should the United States engage with them?
Well, we need to have relationships with all the countries in that region. And as chair of the Middle East Committee, I know how important those relationships are. The optimism of the Arab Spring, so-called Arab Spring early on, in some countries, Egypt's probably a pretty good example, gives us great concern when you have the Muslim Brotherhood and an even more radical party that's involved in the government right now. And the question comes down to, should we continue aid when you know what some of those organizations have traditionally stood for? And I'm very leery about continuing that type of aid if they're heading in the opposite direction, and the interests of the United States may be adversely affected by our very own aid from the American taxpayers. So I think our relationship with Egypt, for example, is in question.
Well, speaking of Egypt, and correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't a new tranche of aid recently approved for Egypt? And that was rather controversial. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, perhaps reluctantly, said that we should go forward, that is, the Congress should go forward with aid to the current military government. What was your position on that?
Yeah, I thought we should not have continued the support. And unfortunately, what typically happens is Congress puts in there a waiver ability for the administration to say, we're going to send the funds anyway, despite the fact that Congress opposed that. I think when Congress passes these bills, we ought to leave those waivers out. If we think the funding shouldn't go there, it shouldn't go there. We shouldn't say, okay, we'll leave it up to the administration to decide whether it can overrule Congress or not. We're the representatives of the people, and we shouldn't give the administration that power.